Hey there. Welcome to The Quiet Part, hosted by Mark Hansen, a financial advisor at Second Comma. That's me, by the way. This podcast explores our often unspoken priorities and dreams. You know, the things that shape our lives, even if we aren't conscious of how it plays out. The reasons why we sometimes struggle to do what we know we should do, and even continue to do the things that we know we shouldn't. Join me as we go through the everyday, gaining a deeper understanding of ourselves, our decisions, and how we spend our time, our money, and ultimately our lives.
Hello, and welcome to the podcast, The Quiet Part, with Mark Hansen. Mark, good to be with you again. This is your second episode. For those who want to play catch up, they can go back and listen to episode 1. But good to be with you again.
Yeah, this is an important milestone. We now have twice as many episodes as we used to have. This is really important stuff.
It's really important. We are operating on a multiple factor. I mean, actually, one could say it's even exponential, as a matter of fact. Now, we have a few leftover questions from the last episode, and it was actually a quite interesting conversation and very revealing. And today, after learning about you in the first episode, we're going to talk more about your company and your approach and how you work with clients and who those clients are and that kind of thing. So why don't we just start with the question of why are you a financial planner?
When I think about that, I really just want to come alongside people. People who say, I want to be like fill in the blank with my money. I want to come alongside those who know that they aren't where they desire to be and where that comes from. I think I touched on it a little bit in the last episode. When I was growing up, I was not good with money. Yeah, I was trying to stretch every dollar that I had. I was spending above and beyond the money that I was making. And for a long time, I didn't understand how to save. I only knew how to spend. And when I think about being younger, I don't feel like I was taught how to save. And Mom, Dad, if you feel different, I'm very sorry about that. My dad would give me advice like pay yourself first. And he would even go beyond that. He would tell me how much he was saving each month and what account he was putting it into. But it was hard for me to translate that into the actions and the advice for me and my situation and my income and my expenses. And because it was hard, I didn't prioritize it. And because I didn't prioritize it, it didn't happen, right? When I was growing up, I've been trying to think through how did this come to be? How did I get to where I was not knowing how to save? And I think about when I was growing up, when I was born, the way that I remember it being told to me, my parents, they couldn't afford daycare. So I stayed at my grandparents' house a lot, which was super cool. Yep. Love my grandparents' house. Fun fact, I just went back to my grandmother's house recently, and my son has recently gotten into Legos. And I knew that at grandmommy's house was a giant bin of Legos. And I kept telling my son, it's like, when we go, we're going to play with the Legos that Daddy used to play with when he was a little boy. And so we go to my grandmother's house, we get the bin out. It's giant. It's like 2 feet wide, a 1.5 feet deep and 1.5 feet tall. It was a giant bin of Legos. And I opened it up and I was like, these Legos are kind of different. And I started looking at them and I realized it was the original set of Legos. When Legos first came from Denmark to America, it was the original set of Legos. Every block says patent pending. And I was like, I didn't know I was playing with like the coolest version of Legos. So my son we spent Christmas break playing with the original Legos that came over from Denmark before Lego even had the patent on the brick that we call Lego.
Oh, whoa. I've got to go downstairs because we have a storage tub that's probably twice the size of the one you talked about, filled with Legos that our son played with. So now I got to go down there and go look at them. Oh, man, that's cool. That is great.
Yeah. But I go to my grandparents' house a lot. And the reason they couldn't afford daycare was because my parents just were riddled with credit card debt. And they were working hard. They were going to work, getting money. They were paying it off. And every time that they would pay off a credit card, we would celebrate. And we would celebrate by going to McDonald's. And the celebration was that they would watch me eat a Happy Meal, right? And that's a really interesting thing for me to remember as a kid, that was all tied together with me staying at my grandparents' house. Now, as a kid, as I grew up over time, we went from the house that I was born in to the house that I we built in an up and coming neighborhood to an upper middle class neighborhood. The house was one story, then it had stairs, and then the house had a pool, and we couldn't afford daycare, and then we could, and then we could afford the super cool daycare with the air hockey table and the computer lab.
Whoa.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh.
And just as I've moved through life, I've chatted with people and I see it over and over again. Some parents struggle with finances and some don't. Some parents can come clean about their struggles and some hide it and they keep up the facade that everything's okay. And it's very interesting to me that some people just need someone to come alongside them and help teach them the new skills. If I look back at my life again, but flash way forward, right? What was it that took me from who I was to who I am today? And very common answer, right? I met a girl. I met a girl in college and I really wanted to get to know her. So I got a job where she had a job. And actually, I was already gainfully employed. I took on a second job at the bar that she worked at so I could meet her. Okay. And before anybody gets bent out of shape, we're married now. Okay. Like I met a girl at a bar, but we're married now. We got 3 kids. And I forever will get to tell our kids that daddy met mommy in a bar. And I think I think that's hilarious.
Quick. No, I think it's hysterical. My son met his wife in a bar. So it's fine.
There we go.
Yeah.
And what was so interesting to me is that she was really good at saving, really good at it.
Oh, wow.
And she found out how bad I was at saving when we graduated and we got engaged. And I finally disclosed some of the debt that I had on credit cards, which if anybody's listening and you see a pattern, yes, that's how patterns work.
That's how patterns work. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, luckily, I had so little money that I could barely even get approved for a credit card. So everything was maxed out, but it was like $500 or $600. Okay. But my spouse was really the one who taught me how to handle money mentally and emotionally. And I realized that was the big difference. She taught me how to make smart decisions. She taught me how to think about what I was spending my money on. The fact that I was going to work, I was being paid, and I was wasting the money means that I was wasting my time. I was wasting my life. She tied all of that together for me. And I didn't think about it like that until I knew her. And that just flipped a switch in me. I saw things so differently. I started to see the cascading series of consequences, good and bad, when I made a singular action at a point in time. It's like you can't spend the same $100 on a date night and then try to put it into your retirement accounts. You have to pick what you want to do, and you have to go through the process of realizing what's actually important to you and what is not. And all of these new thoughts and mental models started flooding into my primitive worldview of money. And then I combined that with my passion for learning that I definitely talked about last time. And you flash all the way forward to right here, right now, this podcast. My name is Mark. I'm the owner of Second Comma, and it's a virtual financial planning firm dedicated to helping 6-figure single income families put their money to work and get out from underneath the burden of personal finance.
It's amazing. It's amazing. And I would really recommend anybody who's listening to this edition of the podcast, they go back and listen to the first one because your personal story is pretty phenomenal. And that was a great conversation. I'm looking forward to this one because now we've arrived at Second Comma. So what is Second Comma? Let's talk about the who's and what's and whys around Second Comma.
Yeah. So who is Second Comma? It's me. Yeah. It's me, myself, and I. And I like small companies. I like efficiently run companies. And so that's what I have. It is a one-man operation that provides an ever increasing level of quality service to my growing list of clients. In the future, if part of providing ever increasing levels of quality service requires an additional person or two, then that's great.
Yeah.
I'm totally open to that. It will always be prioritized is quality service. And so for anyone that's listening, just so you guys know, I don't have grand visions of a giant building with the company name or my name plastered all over it. I have grand visions of deep relationships with my clients that I care about. And I have grand visions of families being more confident in their finances and their ability to make informed financial decisions. If we pair that up with what is Second Comma, if I had to put it in one sentence, I would say I help people in their 30s spend the next 30 years preparing for the last 30 years. And second comma is a place where knowledge is translated into specific systematic actions that my clients can take in their finances. We lay out a path to go from where we are to where we need to be. Sometimes that's a short path, sometimes that's a long path, but that's what we're doing. We're laying out specific steps. And I think my favorite part is the why of second comma. Why does second comma even exist? Second comma is a company that's optimized for quality family time. And that's going to be for yours and mine. If you look at the logo, it's a speech bubble. That represents that we're going to be having strategic conversations. Sometimes those strategic conversations are going to involve dollar signs. The name of the company is an allusion to the effect that comes when we take actions today, right? If we can have strategic conversations and commit to a long, slow obedience of stewarding our money, then the outcomes can be beyond our comprehension, which is again captured in the logo, right? Go back, look at the logo again. Frequently people will say to me, "Oh, okay, I see the comma, but where's the second comma?" People like to make that joke. And I tell them, "Well, go look again. It's two commas and they're stacked on top of each other." And then they say, "Oh, it is two commas." And it's like, but then they finally see it. It was right there in front of them the whole time, but they didn't notice it. And that's a really good representation of what happens when we put intention and intentional work into our finances. We can't accurately gauge the full outcome of the efforts that we're putting in. I love walking people through that process. And that's what we do here.
What do you mean by intention? I want to stop for a second. When you talk about intentional work, are you talking about what some people use as purpose, or how are you using that word?
I think it is going to be a mixture. So people need to know their purpose to attach intention to their actions. And so if I was going to paint a mental picture for somebody, I would say, picture a bucket in your head and you're holding it by the handle. And that bucket has two holes in it. But one of the holes has a spigot with like a handle that you can turn on and off. Okay. That's the two different concepts. Okay. The bucket is your finances in general. If you have a hole, you have a leak. It is ruining the purpose of the bucket. If you have a spigot, you have an additional feature that you can intentionally do something with. You can now you are increasing the utility of the bucket. And I use that verbiage a lot where I tell people, this is a hole in your bucket, or this is a spigot in your bucket. This is a detriment to the function of the bucket, or this is a feature that enhances the utility of the bucket. And it's taking that knowledge and laying it onto every time we swipe our credit cards or some cash. That's kind of what I was talking about with the intention and the application of the knowledge.
So you mentioned that you like your ideal client is a couple in their 30s, or people who are in their 30s. They don't have to be married. I mean, give us a better idea. I mean, is this are you really looking at people who are just starting out their journey? Or are you looking at people? Are you looking to talk to people who have been like you, ask themselves, where did the money go? what happened? What? I'm making a decent paycheck. Where did everything go? I mean, who do you work with?
I do work with people. I'm finding as I get into this, as I build a client base, I'm finding that it's typically people earlier in their investing career. Okay. Now, if I add some more color to that picture, I specifically focus my time and my effort towards six-figure single income families. So let's work through some of those terms. Six-figure, meaning we have a level of income where we can start tying different strategies together, right? We're not scraping by. And sometimes, I should clarify, sometimes people have high income and they spend all of it. And that's still a version of scraping by. Paycheck to paycheck can go to any level.
I live in a high cost part of the country. I mean, there are people who I know who make six figures who barely get by.
Yeah.
That's not, I mean, the idea that it's like, whoa, if I make six figures, I'm going to be like cruising on the mountaintop. And that's not true often.
Yeah. The giant asterisk on that statement is it depends on your expenses. If your expenses, no matter your income, if your expenses are in relation equal to your income, you will always be scraping by. The next category is going to be single income. So I I have found a really beautiful place to work with people when someone has chosen to stay home to provide for the family and someone has chosen to go to work, whether that's virtually or physically, but they go to work to provide for
Yep.
the family. There's only one income. So you could say it's almost twice as important to take care of the one income. And I like that meeting place because these are families, two people with little ones running around the house. And I find inside of there's some business owners and there's some people in managerial roles and there's people who have gotten to a level of success or a level of income that they start asking questions, right? Just like I did. It's the income is at this level. Why do I not have the outcomes that I'm looking for? So these are people that could use a little bit more structure to help things take off or to get into a system. And I see a lot of synergy between what I do and the expertise that I have and what these people need. I think my big caveat is like I describe these people partially, but here's the real crux. This is what the quiet part is all about. And this is why I started this podcast. A couple quotes. Okay. So the first quote says, the general human failing is to want what is right and important, but at the same time, not to commit to the kind of life that will produce the action that we know to be right and the condition that we want to enjoy. To translate that, right? Like we know what we want, but we don't understand the full suite of actions necessary to give us what we want. And I love helping people figure that out. I just listed off a lot of good intentions: family, children, living intentionally, spending your money on things that are important to you. But I bet there's a lot of people listening that resonate with those good intentions. And I bet there are some percentage of those people who can't seem to take their good intentions and translate it into action in their business, in their home, in their family, in their finances. And I meet that with my second quote. I think this is really the foundational statement for the quiet part. And the last quote is, I do not understand what I do. For what I want to do, I do not do. Yet I do the things that I know are not good for me. That right there, I believe someone out there just said to themselves, I don't even know this guy, but he just perfectly described my life. And those are the people that are motivated and ready to take action. And that's who I hope to talk to with my company, Second Comma.
Yeah, that is great. I mean, I'm not being cute. You're sitting there giving those quotes, and I'm thinking, I can boil it down to even a more simple level. I think a lot of us want things, but we don't understand what we need to do. And sometimes when we understand what we need to do, we still don't commit to doing it, which is where I have found in my experience, and I've seen in other people's lives, where a person like yourself, I'm gonna use the word coach, but a planner or someone can say, "Hey, Bill, we know what you want, we know you can do it, but I'm going to be here to make sure you're committed in taking the steps that you need to take to do it."
Yeah, I've had somebody say, "I'm hiring you to be my accountability coach when I'm doing this.
Bam.
These are things that are important to me. It's important to my family, and my family's so important. I'm hiring you to help me make sure I get it done."
Yep. No, that makes total sense. So, like, what is it? I want to explore what it's like to work with you when a family obviously has thought about this and thought we need to go seek some help. We need to go talk to somebody and kind of get our acts together here. When they come in, what's that first meeting like, and what's the process look like?
So when I come alongside of a family, I like to give all the information up front. I want everyone to know what we would be doing before we get into the actual relationship piece where maybe money starts moving between one account to another or something like that. So a lot of people come to me and they think that their answer is, I need to be investing. And it's more of a, hey, let's hit the brakes. Let's put the car in park, actually, and let's just talk before we keep driving. Let's make sure we're going in the right direction. And when I sit people down and I think about it, or they think about it, it's, you came to me and you said, hey, we need to be investing. We're not investing enough. And I'm like, well, let's talk about I have kind of like five piers that I talk about. So if you think of like a house with a pier and beam foundation instead of a slab foundation, the piers are the pieces that run vertically into the ground and they hold up the whole house. Okay. So I have 5 piers that I like to focus on. That's estate planning, risk management or insurance. It can be called retirement, investing, and then tax planning. And so I walk I get information from the potential client and I put it through all 5 of those filters, right? So estate planning, you do or you don't have it. If you don't have it, then we're going to talk about bringing in an outside licensed professional to address what's needed. And estate planning is essentially, what do you own? Who do you want to own it when you stop owning it? How do you want them to own it? And this topic can be really hard because it's about when you bite the dust, right?
Right. Yeah. No, it involves the D word. It's about when you die.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
nobody wants, wait, I'm immortal, man.
Yeah.
Whoa,
Yeah.
hold on, buddy. I'm going to be here forever. Let's stop.
Estate planning is super easy to ignore, but it doesn't make it less important, right? And so that's the first thing. That's kind of the first checkpoint that we go through is like you do or you don't have something and it is or it isn't taken care of correctly. That's something we're going to address. And then we get to risk management and insurance. We bring in another outside licensed professional to address what's needed. We do personal needs, we do business needs. Your clients can be entrepreneurs, and that comes with additional considerations. And sometimes risk management is completely ignored on the business side of the equation, and that can leave your family really exposed. That's not to sell fear. That's just to level set, right? This topic can be hard for people too, because it's about preparing for situations where you can't keep being yourself in one capacity or another. Then we jump into retirement. Like, what do you want it to be? What do you want to do? Who do you want to do it with? And when do you want to start doing it? And this is a 30-year conversation. It's constantly changing. And the financial plan that we have in place will change right alongside with it. That's the benefit, in my belief, of going with an ongoing relationship, having an ongoing conversation with your financial advisor versus trying to take like a snapshot in time and then play that out for 30 years. Now, after retirement, which in retirement is a very high level conversation. It's not, hey, what's your utility bill going to be when you're 76 and it's winter? It's not a conversation like that. We're talking broad conversations because, again, we have 30 years to really fine tune what we're talking about. But we get into investing. How do we go from where we are to where we need to be? What kind of accounts do we need? How many dollars are we trying to put in each account? There's strategies to be implemented when you're saving for retirement. You can choose specific accounts because there are benefits that come with those different accounts. You can hold specific investments in specific kind of accounts. You might have heard of IRA, Roth IRA, brokerage account. But I mean, did you know that each of those accounts have different rules, different benefits, different uses? You can think of, sometimes I explain it this way. You can have a wine glass, you can have a beer glass, and you can have a sports bottle, like something you would drink, like a squeeze bottle on your bike or something like that. They all do the same thing. They hold liquid. But if somebody comes to your house and you serve them a beer in a wine glass, they're going to look at you because that's weird.
They'd be like, that's weird.
No. It's
they're
just
going to think you don't do the dishes. I mean,
it says you don't know what this is for.
Right.
Yeah, it doesn't just hold liquid. It holds a specific kind of liquid. And that's the same thing with these investment accounts. They can hold investments, but if you wanted to really talk about the nuts and bolts of it, they can hold specific kinds of investments because there are benefits to doing that. And there's a simple way to work through all that. And again, that's what I like to do. And the last thing we usually talk through is tax planning, which is we'll work with your CPA. And the goal is to lower your lifetime tax bill. The taxes can easily be the biggest expense that you have in your life. And there's so many strategies that we can try to legally minimize your total lifetime expenses when it comes to taxes. And people get scared of that a little bit because the tax code is scary and IRS is scary. Those are things that I've heard people say. And say no to the tax code. There's professionals that know exactly what to do, and we're going to partner with them to lower the tax bill. Now, everything that I just talked about, all 5 of those phases are part of the onboarding phase, right? We get through there and we say, okay, now we've got a plan. Now we move into kind of the maintenance phase. We're having conversations about automating the finances. We're removing your need to keep finances at the front of your mind. We're allowing things to kind of go on the back burner. We're automating things, and we're no longer having to feel that tension when we come to money. We'll talk about buying a house or buying a boat, buying a car. We're saving for college, saving for vacation, saving for Christmas, right? Like you can take the expense of Christmas and you can stretch it out over 12 months. And just by the time Christmas comes, you can have the money ready versus, oh shoot, it's Thanksgiving. I have not saved up money for Christmas. Now we've got to try to cash flow Christmas. And it's that same anxiety that we feel every year. Yeah, you buy a boat, you might need to sell a boat. These are all things that we can talk about. We really, I say our conversation can be about anything that involves dollar signs. That's what I offer to people. And sometimes we'll come across a situation where the financial plan needs a small course correction. And sometimes we'll come across where we need a big course correction. But in general, we'll keep ourselves liquid, right? We're not going to lock ourselves up into ice, if that makes sense. And if we have a good plan and we see a way to shift over and have a great plan, then that's what we'll do.
So it sounds like it's the hard part's committing to getting started. But once you commit and you are started, correct me if I'm wrong by saying this, it sounds like we are now into really a fundamentally simple process.
Yeah, I would say overall, it's a very simple process. It is structured. We go from A to Z, right? We have direction, we have orientation. I fit it in at the cadence of the client's life. But don't hear me say simple and think that I'm saying easy.
Yeah,
right?
no. There's a big difference. There's a big difference between the two. There's a big difference between the two.
There can be a lot of homework to get this process started or to go from A to Z. And there can be a long list of actions. But that's why I have a system to meet with my clients at their convenience. I capture all the important to-dos and I help my clients work through them very systematically in an order that makes sense based on the priorities and the needs of the family. That's the whole point of what I'm doing. And then as those priorities need to shift and reshuffle, I'm right there to handle all that and shift and shuffle right alongside my clients.
That's great. Well, we're getting ready to wrap this episode up. And before we do, I want to ask you, for the folks who are listening, what is your ask of the audience? If anybody's listening to you and think, what should they do now?
If somebody's wondering what they should do now, I would ask you to lean into that, as in don't ignore it. If you have an inkling of, I think Mark's talking about something important, I would say lean into that. If anything that we said today piques any of your interest, then we might have something to talk about. If something piques your interest, but you aren't ready to chat, you want to learn a little bit more, then I would say go to the website and download my ebook. The ebook takes a fictional couple through everything that I just talked about. They go through estate planning, risk management. They talk about retirement and investing and tax planning. You can see examples of what this actually looks like and say, oh, I do or I don't want this. This does or this doesn't make sense for me and my family and where we are in life. And there's going to be a link for the ebook in the show notes. And I will offer an additional thing here. There's a software that I use called Asset Map. An asset map is, think of putting your whole financial life on one piece of paper. All the people that are in your life, the accounts that you have, the business entities, your trust, your debt, your income, all of it just neatly organized into categories and sections and set down on one piece of paper, like would come out of your printer. That is a software that I have that I'm offering to anybody who's listening to this. If you would like to make your own asset map, then check the link in the show notes. This is totally free to you. The only thing I need to know is where to send it. And then if you would like to have a conversation about that, that's awesome. If not, the asset map is yours. But I can get you a link where you can make your own asset map, and then you can at least understand what your financial life looks like. A lot of people couldn't even sit down and put it on paper. And I want to give people the chance to do that. As you go about your day and your week and your month, if you bump into someone and you have a conversation that sounds like anything that we've said today, share this episode with them. Let them hear what we do here at Second Comma. We talk about this stuff all the time. We just don't take action on it.
No, I hear you. I know it's totally true. I've been guilty of it myself. So it's all of us. And by the way, for those of you who are listening who are thinking, God, I didn't get all of that stuff, I don't know what to do here. It's in the show notes. Okay. There's show notes down below. You can look in those and you can see Mark's contact information. You can reach out to him that way. And if you're not sure of the website, it's there as well. So there are links for you. Don't worry about it. The only thing you need to do right now is hit subscribe. Because if you're not a subscriber, we would really like you to subscribe to this podcast. That way you will not miss another episode. When Mark puts one together, it'll be delivered to you You'll be notified and you won't miss another podcast. Pretty easy.
Pretty easy.
Mark? Yeah, thanks, Mark. This is a great conversation. I'm looking forward to this podcast going on and on and on out into the future because it's a lot of really important, really valuable information. Not always easy, surprisingly simple. On behalf of Mark, I'm Bill Tucker, the producer of this podcast, thanking you for listening and reminding you that today, go out and make it a great day or not. It's your choice. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on The Quiet Part. If you found value in our journey today, please subscribe and stay updated on future episodes. Check the links in the show notes to learn more about Second Comma or discuss working together. Remember, The Quiet Part is more than a podcast. It's a journey towards understanding the deeper aspects of our lives. It's about saying the quiet part out loud. Click the follow button and be part of the conversation about uncovering the unspoken. Lastly, here's some important information for our listening audience to know. The opinions voiced in this episode are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations to any individual or entity. Any depictions made in this podcast are hypothetical only. For a comprehensive review of your personal situation, consult with your financial or tax advisor before investing. Cetera does not provide any tax or legal advice. Securities and advisory services are offered through Cetera Advisor Networks, LLC, member FINRA SIPC, a broker-dealer and registered investment advisor. Cetera is under separate ownership from any other named entity. Neither the co-host nor its guests are affiliated with Cetera Advisor Networks, LLC. Any information they provide is unrelated to Cetera Advisor Networks, LLC, or its registered representatives. Mark Hansen, Financial Planner, 275 Wood, Teakwood Lane, Plano, Texas, 75075.